Salam everyone! This story is part of a series titled The Seattle Jijinas. In 2005, I was part of a men's group, and we met at a friend's home. Eric was a doctor, and he taught alternative medicine at Bastyr University. I still remember his words the first time we met at his Roosevelt Way home. Eric said, "I cannot for the life of me understand why in the neighborhood where you have all these elegant Tudor-style brick homes from the 40s and 50s, someone would build an eyesore of a 70s home next door." The home Eric was pointing to was one that I had helped build as part of the Jijina family business. I had come to the perfect place. The topic for that evening was boys and their fathers. Welcome to Storytime with Kumars. My name is Kayo Jijina, and this is my story titled Moonlighting. I hope you enjoy it. Summer of 1979. After much brouhaha, Dad finally gave in and I began to work part-time at the Ballard Burger King on Market Street, close to 15th Avenue Northwest. The conditions were no more than 3 nights a week, and half of what I earned would be turned over to Mom to go towards paying for my college. I still worked for the family business 6 days a week, and oddly enough, paying for college fit right into my personal goals. Last but not least, this job could only last through the summer. In the fall, I would resume college classes at Northgate State. The evening shift at Burger King was made up of high school and college age young people very much like me. It was a great fit. Not only were they a fun group to work with, but we hung out and went places, like cruising Alki Beach, the movies, out for ice cream, or playing pinball at the arcades. This group was high on life, without any need for alcohol or drugs. By this time, Dad had eased up on where I went and what I did. However, Mom threw in a curfew. At first it was 11:30, and we kept getting grounded. So Brother and I negotiated with her. She agreed to midnight plus a half hour to drive home. With my 1-year probation over for being a new driver, I could now borrow the family car, a 1965 Chevelle wagon. The wagon had the added feature of having removable floorboards. The original floorboards had rusted through, so Dad cut pieces of plywood to cover the rusty holes. The gang loved to lift the plywood pieces and watch the road go by from inside the car as we drove, holding their feet up high. The Chevy had an underpowered 6-cylinder engine, so it never went very fast, unless we were headed down a very long, steep hill. I loved the evenings of burger flopping with friends, goofing off and closing. And then there were the magical milkshakes. The magical milkshake was one where we took pieces of processed chicken patty and dipped it into our vanilla milkshake before eating it. Over the summer, Burger King gave me something to look forward to after working long days for Dad. I did not mind the $5.50 an hour. It was much more than what I got paid for working in the family construction business. At the end of summer break, I turned in my 2-week notice with the hopes of finding something similar again next summer. A few months later, when Burger King was a distant memory, I received a call. One of those out-of-the-blue things. Fortunately, I was at home when the phone rang and got to it before Mom. It helped me avoid unwanted questions. It was one of the Burger King managers, Sandy. She was calling to ask if I'd be interested in working a few hours a day to help cover the lunch rush. Instantly, my radar went up, in case Mom was eavesdropping. I was careful with the words I chose not to reveal who was on the phone or the topic of conversation. Conversation went something like this. "So good to hear from you. That would be wonderful. How about if we talked again on Wednesday?" The words job, schedule, Burger King, lunch shift never came out of my mouth. By February, the outside temperatures would drop to about freezing, and all I had was my Schwinn bicycle. The logistics of traveling from the college at Northgate all the way down to Ballard, a distance of about 5 miles, was long but doable since most of it was downhill. And most days I froze. After working, the ride back home was 1.6 miles, with all of it being uphill. When I would get home, I had to get ready and go to work with Dad. Fortunately, the stinky work clothes helped cover the smell of fried oil that had embedded itself in my hair. The question ran through my mind, was $5.50 an hour for 3 hours of work really worth all this back and forth craziness? I was not convinced. However, I had made the commitment, so I stuck with it. Contrary to my thinking, the lunch rush at Burger King was intense, insane, like nothing I had experienced with evening shift. Most of the people who stopped in for lunch worked and were in a hurry to get in and out. If it took too long, they were unhappy. Watching the attitudes of the lunch rush people, I came to some kind of a conclusion, a theory. It seemed the less people paid for something, the more they complained. My schedule was moving at a hectic but manageable pace, and the extra money kept me pacified. Until one evening when Dad called me upstairs to talk, he had a bright idea. "Son, starting tomorrow, I want to pick you up at the college and go straight to work. That way we don't waste time." Dad had started work building a home on an empty lot we purchased several years back when we still lived in Iran, at 7533 Roosevelt Way Northeast. The college was 1.5 miles from the Roosevelt construction site. Our home, 4 miles. Dad wanted to save the time in between, and since Brother's school schedule required him to stay longer at the university, most weekdays he was not available to help, leaving just me and Dad. I was caught in a quandary, not sure what to do. I did not feel I could just call Sandy up and quit. I asked if I could use the 65 Chevelle to drive from college to the construction site, thinking with a car I could cover a lot more ground. My trips to and from Burger King would go much faster, but the answer was no. After some back and forth discussion, I pretty much gave up and agreed to Dad's plan. And we settled on the time. He would pick me up at 2 p.m. in front of the college. Speaking of burgers, it did not take a genius to see that I was in a pickle. My Burger King shift ended at 2:30. How was I going to get from Burger King to the college by 2 p.m.? The answer was simple. I had to invent a time machine. Actually, it was time to level with my manager, since talking to Dad was not an option. Sandy understood my dilemma, but she was short-staffed and needed me to work one more week. So we came up with a compromise. I would sign out an hour early from work, 1:30 instead of 2:30, and my good friend Daniel, for that 1 week, would pick me up at Burger King in a Subaru. We would haul ass back to the college, drop me off in back where I would ride my bicycle around front to meet Dad. After meeting Dad, we would load the bicycle into the back of the truck and off to work we went. As I thought about all the sneaking around I was doing, I began to realize I was becoming my mother in how she did things when Dad did not let her do what she wanted to do. Living in Iran, it began with things like going shopping when Dad did not think it was safe, or taking the taxi to visit her mother in the suburb of Tehran called Share-e-Ara. After moving to the US, Dad no longer cared about shopping. He felt it was safe. So Mom began sneaking off to play bingo, telling him she was thrift store shopping. That's when I realized this was not how I wanted to live my life, or who I wanted to become. There had to be another way. One where I could be open and honest about who I was and my needs. While we might not all agree, there would have to be some compromise. To do this, I had to come up with a better plan.